Brightwells Farm sits in between Watford and Oxhey. This path you see me and Wayne walking along here used to be a thoroughfare used as a shortcut to avoid going around the road into central Watford. The field we're walking along at one end, you have the Brightwells Farm buildings, which you can just see on the left hand side there, and Hamper Mill at the far end, which we were walking away from. This is the Green Bridge, which may not have always been called the Green Bridge. In fact, I seem to remember it being a different colour when I was a kid, and being painted sometime in the mid-70s, and from which time it's now been called the Green Bridge. Other people apparently call it the Pipe Bridge, for a reason you can see right now, with the pipe going across there. The bridge itself was part of Colne Valley Waterworks Railway, which was a narrow gauge line that connected Eastbury Pumping Station with the old LMS Rickmansworth line. And in a minute you'll get an idea of the track of the line, which is basically a straight line from the pumping station to the sidings. So although the sidings are gone, you can see where they were just by extrapolating a line along the view. So you'll see that in a moment. But first of all, it's looking up towards Oxhey and the pumping station. So looking across the fields at the moment of what I always considered to be Oxhey Hall Farm, and you'll see Oxhey Hall in a moment, but there we are. That's the pumping station, more or less in the middle of the image, and we're going to start panning around in a moment. But you can see the course of the line going up through there, and say that extrapolates at the other end towards the LMS mainline, not mainline, but Rickmansworth line. That's Oxhey Hall there, or Oxhey Hall Farm, which apparently is a very historic building, but I don't know an awful lot about it. The big block building in the middle of the screen at the moment is a old electrical transmission station, which I always thought we just called the power station when I was a kid. And you can see the Colne running into Watford there to go past Tesco's in about a mile's time. And now these are the buildings of Brightwells Farm. You can see the course of the narrow gauge line, and just imagine it going straight up towards towards that row of trees. The row of trees is the old Rickmansworth line, which is now known as the Eastbury Way. But there you can see where the sidings must have been. And just coming down to look down into the field where Billy the Bull used to live, according to local legend amongst the kids that lived in Vicarage Road at the time. Just launched from the Eastbury Way Bridge, as most people would probably call it now. It used to just be called the Railway Bridge, obviously. And we're looking down into the fields on the south side of the river. That being a wily fox, which just happened to be there and make an interesting subject for a little bit of video. But that's in the fields that used to flood regularly, and the kids used to. This is particularly where the flooding used to be, and kids from Holywell would used to go down there and paddle in it, because it was like a little bit of sea in the middle of Watford. And this is an old World War II pillbox with a strategically placed wooden bench on top of it, so a nice place to go and contemplate the world on a pleasant day if the inside life is just too much for you. But we did go over to this once or twice, but it was a little bit inaccessible because it often used to be quite muddy around that side of the river, and the actual pillbox itself was full of mud and what I assumed was cow poo, because we did find some cows in it once when we went over there. So, but we didn't often go over to there. We used to play mainly on the Scouts field, which is over the other side of the river, and we'll see a little bit more of that in a moment. But there you go, the pillbox with its scenic wooden seat for the alfresco style. This is just looking a reverse view of those fields. So again, these are the fields that flooded. You can see the old what we called the power station, but the transmission station, I believe it's actually called. And on the left here is where we used to play. We'd go fishing down there, or looking for frog spawn and frogging and the like. And in the distance there, the old railway line, where when we were kids, there would very rarely you would see a train, but they did still run there until I think the 1980s, servicing the Dickinsons mill. But the passenger line along there ceased in the 1950s, so we never saw any of that. But very occasionally there was a lot of excitement when we heard a train coming, and everyone rushed down to take a look at it as it went past. So just going to pop over the bridge and then turn around and, trying not to bump into it, fly back underneath it. So a daring stunt. But yeah, this is taken a couple of years ago, and this is in the when I'm still very tentatively learning how to fly the thing. So there's some ducks which provided us with some nice aerobatics as we came down the river a little bit earlier, and they're looking up towards, well, you can just make out the houses, the white houses along at the end of the river. They're on Hampermill Lane, on the bend at Hampermill Lane, opposite Hampermill itself. This is the Scouts field, so we're starting out low, coming up, rising up to take a look at the Scouts field. Called the Scouts field because the first Watford Central's scout hut used to be in there, and it was a fantastic location for a scout hut. With all these fields around it. Sometimes you'd find cows in the scout hut if someone had gone and broken the doors open or something. But the scout hut burned down in the 1990s, and what you can see at the end there, the white block building, is actually now the Watford and District Rifle Club, and they have this lovely flat area in front of them, about 100 yards, just over 100 yards long, with targets at various distances along there. I used to fire there or shoot there when I was in the Sea Scouts, first Watford Central Sea Scouts, and they used to allow us to go there on a Sunday morning and do some rifle shooting, which was interesting, but I was never any good at. And now we're sort of panning round. This is the end of Vicarage Road. My old house is one of those in that last block there. The fields there, George V playing fields, and then Highview, is it, going away from Vicarage Road, and then looking around at the estate proper in full, with Moorview being the closest road there, which is parallel with Vicarage Road, and the Caractacus Cottage View, which is newer builds put up in the 1980s, I think it was, or maybe 1990s. And now looking back up towards Watford and the old wreck at Harwood's, and the new builds out the back of the hospital, and the town beyond that. I think, is that, can you just make out? Not sure if that's the Meriden Towers in the distance there. And the power station, as we called it, the river heading into Watford, and now looking over towards Silkmill Road and Oxhey. And these are the play-in fields, which a lot of guys do in the Sunday League, Saturday League football, I remember, with the nice view of that bridge looking back towards it. The Oxhey Hall farm again, looking towards London in the very far distance, with Oxhey in the background, looking up towards Northwood, and the river there that leads up to Hampermill and Hampermill Lane. and there's the buildings for Brightwells Farm. Turning round back to the scout field, and I don't know if you can make out, there's a building tucked away in the trees just slightly to the left, getting further to the left there in the distance, and that was Moor Park House, the house on the golf club. So if I've got any of that wrong, please let me know, or if you've got more information about any of it, that will be fantastic.